Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. We're so glad that you tuned in today. We are a ministry that helps you to defund darkness with our biblically responsible investing strategy, teaching you how to screen out the companies in corporate America that are funding the garbage in this world, funding the things that don't align with our Christian values like abortion, pornography, the LGBTQ agenda, human rights violations, and so much more. And we encourage you to not only defund darkness, but fund the light, to be a joyful and generous giver. On most days, we may give you some ideas about where you can deploy some of your financial resources, but today we're going to continue to ask that you deploy some of those resources to Financial Issues to support our year-end campaign. So today, we're going to talk about how to use a donor-advised fund as a way to do some of your charitable giving. Dan Steiner, the president of Preborn, is going to join us later in the show to talk about their ministry and the Compounding Impact campaign, how you can bless this ministry as well. And then Jason MacDowell is going to join us to talk about more things, some interesting things that have come up in the way of Social Security planning. We've been talking about that a good bit. We've had some questions on it, and we've had some developments, some things that we have learned that are happening now with Social Security. So hope that you'll stay tuned for that. Our stewardship verse today comes from Psalm 112, 1 and 2. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord, who greatly delights in his commands. His offspring will be mighty in the land, and the generation of the upright will be blessed. Well, it always gets me excited when we talk about offspring, because I have a couple of kiddos that I love dearly, and I know, Seth, you do too, getting ready to welcome another one into the world.
Yep, it's fun stuff. Tiring, but fun.
Yeah, it is. It is. But, in financial planning, which is where I live for most of my days, either doing the show or in private practice, the topic of beneficiaries comes up very regularly. And people are really happy to think about, the money that they've been able to accumulate while they've been alive, and that they may one day get to pass to their kids and bless their kids. Well, it should make us even happier as Christians to think that we are training up our kids in the fear and the admonition of the Lord, so that one day they will be able to use some of the inheritance and some of the money that they generate on their own to sow into kingdom work. Talk about compounding impact, right, Seth?
Yeah, it sure is, Shana. When we obey the Lord, that compounding impact happens. Blessing follows. It's not merely a blessing for us either. The compounding impact of it is that it's a blessing that casts a shadow over our generations. So if you're obedient to the Lord and sowing those seeds of faithfulness, the scripture says your grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be blessed by that. That's really amazing, Shannon. Of course, we see the flip side of that too, that those who are disobedient, just imagine the harm that brings to your children and grandchildren. But let's resolve to leave this kind of blessing that we can cast a long shadow of faithfulness over our future generations. So, Shana, as you mentioned, the topic of today is just how to use a donor-advised fund well as you're considering the ways to give. Just to start simply, what is a donor-advised fund?
Well, in very basic language, it's a way that you can set up an account. It's an irrevocable gift that you're going to give and not get back. So that's important to know. And you get to be an advisor on that. You get to make requests on how that money is distributed, so how it is given out. And you're required to make the fund is required to make gifts while you're alive and at your death as well. So it's a great tool that you can use to plan your giving out, so that you can do it in we never give to get. We don't We don't even give to get tax deductions, but they do come with our giving. So we want to be a good steward and use those in the most efficient way too.
Yeah, definitely. And so how would this get set up and managed? And maybe just some of the specifics of that. Is it through a brokerage account, financial advisor? What do we need to know?
You could do it in either of those ways, but it's just it's an account that gets set up somewhere. So it's pretty simple to do. It's as easy in most cases as just setting up a brokerage account, but it's a little bit different. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to find a sponsoring organization, a company that is going to open and manage the type of account for you, and you would set that up and then fund it, and then you go from there.
Yep. And then how about some requirements, Shana, specifics of the donor advised fund that we need to be aware of, kind of the tips and tricks? What are some things we need to look out for?
Yeah, so one of the things that you need to be aware of is that you do get to deduct the gift that you give into your donor advised account, but there are some limitations. So, the size of the gift is going to matter as you're planning through this. If you give $1 million, well, you may not be able to deduct $1 million right away unless you have $1 million or way more than $1 million worth of income. So you can give cash to a donor advised fund. You could also gift securities. So let's say that you have just become aware of biblically responsible investing, and your heart has been pierced, and as you look at your portfolio and realize that you have all of these companies that are using your money to promote causes that don't line up with your Christian values, and you are committed to getting rid of those companies. But let's just say that you've owned them for a long time and you've got a lot of gain in them. Well, you can gift securities. You can gift securities outright anytime. Financial issues, we do accept that, not just as part of this campaign, but as an ongoing way. You'll find that a lot of ministries do accept gifts of stock, so that's one way to do it. Now, if you give cash into your donor advised fund, there could be a limitation of about 60%. You could deduct 60% of your adjusted gross income, and you do get to carry that forward for 5 years. So you've got 5 years to be able to use up that deduction. If you give gifts of appreciated securities, you're going to be limited to 30% of your adjusted gross income. So an idea to pair this with is, let's say that you've also realized that you've got a huge percentage of your net worth in an IRA account, and you want to sort of diversify the types of accounts. You want to, pay some taxes today, move it around to, maybe you want to do a Roth conversion. Maybe you want to just distribute some into just a regular investment account so that you don't get stuck paying higher taxes in the future, because I believe that's what's going to happen. So, maybe you can do some of those things, which generates income, and then you have a higher income base to use up some of those deductions. You also want to be aware that this is an irrevocable gift, so you don't get it back. According to the IRS, what they say about it is a donor advised fund is a separately identified fund or account that is maintained and operated by a Section 501c3 organization, which is called a sponsoring organization. Each account is composed of contributions made by individual donors. Once the donor makes the contribution, the organization has legal control over it. However, the donor or the donor's representative retains advisory privileges with respect to the distribution of funds and the investment of assets. So this is not just an extension. This is not an account that you just set up and earmark for giving and you get to do it. There are requirements that comes with it. So number one is you have to spend some time thinking about who will be the sponsoring organization. So there are some mainstream companies out there that do offer donor advised funds, but you have to remember that you're going to be advising how they manage. They can accept or reject your advice. So if you tell them you want the funds managed in a biblically responsible way, they can say yes or no. So you want to make sure that if being biblically responsible is important to you, you want to make sure that you're working with an organization that can do that. Also, as far as requesting grants go, you can say, I would like money to be sent to financial issues, money to be sent to my church, money to be sent to preborn or family research counselor or whatever. The sponsoring organization has the right to refuse your advice. So if they are not friendly to Christian causes, then they could say no, especially if your organization is designated as a hate organization, which has happened to some ministries that we know of. On the flip side of that, there are Christian organizations that we work with that will do due diligence on the organizations that you're requesting gifts to as well. And they don't eliminate whole denominations, but they will look at, if it's a church website, look at their website and see, are they following Christian principles? Do they accept the LGBTQ agenda or not? And they can choose to refuse those kinds of gifts. Well, folks, we got to take a break, but don't go anywhere. We're going to come back and we're going to wrap up these thoughts on donor-advised plans.
I just love the first book of Exodus. The king says, the Jews are too many. Get rid of them. I command you to kill the firstborn. But the midwives to the Hebrews heard the order, and what did they do? They defied it. And God dealt favorably with the midwives and gave them families. He blessed them for loving life. He blessed them for saving babies. We have re-entered the death cult in this country. You think about how much we elevate death, whether it be the chopping off of parts and we call it transgender care, whether it be shouting our abortion, and you see it so beautifully in John 10:10. It is the divide of the entire scriptures. Now, most people would say John 3:16, but think about it. The enemy has come to lie, steal, cheat, and destroy. I have come to give life and life more abundantly. That's the whole ball game, everybody. It is everything. And we have to have the joy of Jesus Christ to enjoy life and to protect it. It's a gift from above. And preborn is leading the charge.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay, or to go, to remain the same, or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Welcome back, everybody. Shana and I are talking about how to use a donor-advised fund in your planned giving. Great info as always, Shana. Let's wrap this conversation up with a couple more questions here. How might a donor-advised fund be really a beneficial way to accomplish planned giving? As you said, we don't give to get, but it's nice to, when we give, there's some benefits to us that come back to it. What are some of the advantages to using this as part of a BRI investment strategy?
Yeah, so again, make sure that your custodian will allow you to manage in a biblically responsible way, because, I know they're one of the big firms that a lot of people have discount brokerage accounts at. They do offer, they have a sponsoring organization that does offer donor advised funds, but you don't get to manage it. It's not like your own brokerage account that you can go in and trade. So you want to maybe work with an organization that's going to allow somebody to manage it in a biblically responsible way. Another way to use it is to front load your giving. So, let's just say that you sell an asset. Maybe you had a rental property that you sold and you want to tithe on. Maybe you came into an inheritance and maybe it's a large inheritance and you want to tithe on that. Maybe you have some kind of settlement or, something of the sort. You can but you don't have a place. The Lord hasn't put a place on your heart to give all of that money to yet. So you could carve out a piece of that. You could set up your own donor advised fund. It's sort of an inexpensive way to create a concept of a family foundation. It's not a true family foundation, but it's a way to kind of mimic that in a less expensive, less complicated way to set up. Or let's just say that you're doing your estate planning and you've totaled up everything that you have and you've decided that you want to leave 10% to the kingdom. Well, you can carve out a piece of your estate and set that aside in your donor advised fund, and you can use it to do your giving while you're alive and at death. So, we never know when we're going to go. And that's a great way to carve out a piece of that, have it already set up to go into kingdom work when you get to go home and be with the Lord. And you're going to, again, want to make sure that it's a custodian that's going to honor the advice that you give them about where you want it to go.
Yeah, good stuff. Last one, Shana. How is this an effective way to participate in our year-end campaign that we're in right now? And we're doing a great job with, by the way, folks.
Yeah. So if you already have a donor advised fund, you can request that a grant be made to financial issues. So however you go about processing that, hopefully they don't have any problems accepting your advice on that. But, if they are pretty quick and relatively easy to set up. So if you're doing that as part of your, year-end planning, say for this year, you probably have time to get it set up and process gifts out this year.
Awesome. That's great, Shana. Thank you for that. I know that was helpful for a lot of folks. Let's move over to some questions here now, if you don't mind. Jay is up first. He's 72. He says, I see some longer-term bond funds have made the sell list. He mentions one in his question. Typically, longer-term bond funds do well in a falling interest rate environment, which you anticipate going on next year. But why would you issue a sell on long-term bond funds now as the Fed is indicating a rate easing forecast? Understandably, the Fed controls short-term rates, but longer-term rates typically follow. Thanks for all your efforts. What would your answer be for Jay?
Yeah, so I agree with what you say, Jay. In a falling interest rate environment, bond prices do increase. But this particular sell alert is not new. So, the Fed just decided to start cutting this week. This sell alert was sent out some months ago, and it was replaced with a different strategy. So the idea was to get a better yield on those particular funds and just a shift in the strategy. So agree with what you're saying, but our strategy is a little bit different.
Yep. Very good. Carol Lee is up next, our friend from Texas. Good morning, Shana and Seth. You might have already had a discussion on this, but with all of the TE91 news out there lately, will there be any new technology stocks that y'all might be adding? And what do you see in the future for technology? And Carol Lee and Shana, I have to apologize for both of you. My y'all was terrible. You guys have a better y'all because you're actually from Texas. I'm from Philadelphia, so I don't know how to say that kind of stuff. I can say wooder, but not y'all. Anyway, what do you have for Carol Lee?
Wooder. What's wooder?
That's water.
Oh,
that's water. That's how Philly people say water. Anyway, yeah, it's bad. It's bad
All
English.
Right. That's okay. I've been accused of having bad English a time or two, but that's okay. So the question with the news about TE91 is going to be in the news for a long time to come. They are the leader in that AI space. Maybe this week. So we've become very regularly on updating the partner commentary. Typically happens on Monday late afternoon into the evening hours, sometime just depending on when we wrap up everything. So there's a possibility that we could have some coming on to the buy list. What I would suggest, though, it's very hard to find anything in technology that is not at 52-week highs, that have really, really high valuations that are, overvalued by most standards. And so what I would suggest, and I do still think that there is weakness in the market coming. I think that earnings for the third quarter that we're going to start to get out here pretty soon are going to be a little bit disappointing, and I think there's still a lot of market volatility that can be caused from the coming election and so many other things. So there's a lot of good technology stocks that I'd really like to see on the buy list, but not at the prices that they're at right now. So what I would suggest, even if we do put some on there, is that maybe you go in at whatever half of the total of what you want to be at. So for example, if your goal is to have 3% in that one stock, maybe you only take an initial position of half of that starting out, and then look for opportunities to average down into it.
Awesome. Next up is Alan, 77 years old, says, where do you suggest I place my F55 stock in the tracker? It's not a REIT or a preferred, and there does not appear to be a financials option. What do you think, Shana?
Actually, there is. Prior to just a few weeks ago, preferreds, REITs, and financials were all grouped into one category. So now you'll see preferreds grouped in with the fixed income, and financials and REITs are still grouped in together.
Very nice. Ed is up next. Ed is 61, and he has some 401k cash investing options. He has a money market that has almost a 5% interest rate, and then a 2-year CD ladder that has about 4.33%. Which option would be better? It seems like option one, since the interest is tax deferred. What do you think?
So I'm going to go with option C.
Okay.
Both.
Nice.
Both.
There you go.
So, I still think you can build a decent 2-year CD ladder, even though rates on money market are much higher. Because what's going to happen is if you build that ladder, you're going to extend even that 4.33% rate for the next year and a half to 2 years, while we're going to start to see money market rates, I think, drop off dramatically. So I think it's just a matter of time before your money market rate is less than your CD rate. So you could actually think of the money market as another rung to your ladder. So you would have that CD ladder split 4 ways over a 2-year period, and then you would have a portion staying in money market. And I think that you could continue to use that money market while rates are still advantageous.
Very cool. Next one we have is Joshua. It says, my employer recently had to close their doors. Unfortunately, they informed me my job was going away. So now my 401k can't be rolled over to a new employer that doesn't have a retirement plan. Is that correct? I'm looking for help on what to do with the 401k. What help do you have for Joshua?
Yeah, so whenever you have a 401k and you have a qualifying event, like you separate from service, you become a certain age, death, disability, those are some of the reasons that are triggering events for you to be able to do something with your 401k. Sometimes you have the option to roll it into your new employer retirement plan, their 401k. I personally don't see much benefit in doing that at all. And I think it's a much better option to roll it to just an individual retirement account. So you can still keep that tax deferral. You can still not have any tax consequences if you roll it over into an individual IRA. At that point, now you get to control it. So a couple of benefits there. You get to manage it, whereas in your 401k, you're limited to the investment options that your employer allows you to invest in. If you roll it into an IRA, especially at a discount brokerage firm, then all of the options are available to you as to what you want to invest in. So then you can really become a partner, follow our biblically responsible investment strategy using our asset allocation models. The other advantage too is that if you roll it into, worse if you leave it there, because sometimes people move, they forget to update their addresses, and they kind of lose track of certain assets. And that would be a real tragedy if you just lost all that money or forgot that you had it and lost use of it. Also, 401k plans go through what's called a blackout period if they ever change custodians, and that happens from time to time. A company will switch from Fidelity to Vanguard, or maybe different custodians. And when they do that, there's a blackout period. There's usually like a 90-day period where you can't access your funds. So, it's a relatively short period, but what if you need it what if you really need to get to it during that time? So I think rolling it into an individual IRA is probably the best option there.
Awesome. Quick one here, Shana. Lieutenant Tony Banks is asking about HC 76. Given it may be a good option for long term, is it now still a good buy, or are there other healthcare options soon to be added?
Thank you for your service, Lieutenant. And the answer is yes, sir. As long as it's on the buy list, we still consider it to be a good time to buy it.
Awesome. Very cool.
All right. Well, folks, we do have to take a break. If you're listening on a outlet that carries the short version of the show, we wish you a farewell. For the rest of you, stay tuned. We have more financial issues coming right up for you.
Noah surrendered to the radical call to build an ark. Abraham had to leave his friends and family and the place where he lived to experience what God had for him. Both Abraham and Noah had a choice to be obedient. Will you abandon investments in your portfolio that support abortion, gambling, and pornography? Learn how you can invest biblically and abandon investments that dishonor God. Become a Financial Issues partner today. Go to financialissues.org/join to learn more.
Through the ministry of Preborn, the Financial Issues family has saved tens of thousands of lives of babies. What an amazing job that God has done through you, the Financial Issues family. Would you join us in saving the lives of babies? What an amazing reunion we will have in glory, meeting all the people that we have saved. Please go to preborn.org, that is preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn banner.
I started investing close to 30 years ago now. All that time, I had never heard anyone talk about setting up your portfolio in a way that glorifies God. When I first heard about it, I was listening to the radio, a show called Financial Issues. They were teaching people how to honor God with their money. That made a lot of sense to me. I guard my heart, my mind. I watch my mouth, hoping to bring glory to God in everything I do and say. Well, why wouldn't I want to do the same with my money? I decided I wanted my portfolio to glorify God. I became a partner with Financial Issues, and it's been one of the best decisions I've made. I want to leave a legacy of godliness for those who are following in my footsteps. Invest your money in a God-honoring way. Go to financialissues.org.
Well, this property was actually purchased by my great-grandfather, and we were able to come back to the farm a few years back to keep the family farm, hopefully, in the family.
Working together is a lot of fun sometimes and can be very challenging.
Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron.
We want to try to provide the freshest possible and healthiest possible produce for our neighbors and our friends and the people that we are able to touch in their lives at the farmers markets. Samaritan Ministries is a perfect fit because we feel like we can actually partner with other Christians to help them provide for their medical needs.
We're Tony and Ginger Malik, and we are Grandma and Grandpa's farm in Sparland, Illinois, and we are Samaritan Ministry members.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Well, welcome back to Financial Issues, everybody. Good to be here with you today. Hey, we've had a great weekend for our campaign so far. Up to date, as of right now, we're just over $70,000 raised to our $200,000 goal. Still a little bit of a way to go, but the Financial Issues audience always seems to come through in the later hours. So I appreciate that so much. You all have done a great job, but we are well on our way to our $200,000 goal. We got a couple new monthly soldiers, which we're thrilled about. So just thank you all so much. Those of you who have given to our ministry, prayed for our ministry, we cannot do this without you. So we appreciate you so very much today. I believe we do have Dan Steiner. I think Dan is ready to come on here. We had some audio issues earlier, but we've got those worked out. So Dan, I want to welcome you onto the show. Thanks for joining me again, brother. It's great to have you on.
It's always my privilege and pleasure to be part of what you guys are doing here and helping America to be wise stewards of the Lord's money. This is awesome.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Dan, as you may know, I think we're in the midst of our end of our fiscal year campaign. We're calling this our Compounding Impact campaign, kind of a play on words there with compounding interest. And I would love for you to just speak to this idea of the compounding impact that the listeners of Financial Issues alongside of the preborn family has had in the past, now close to a decade here, of pushing back against the darkness of abortion. What does this mean to you?
Well, I think that's aptly stated in that it's not just about the wonderful idea of helping people discern where to invest their money, not to be supporting companies that hate your guts. It's not a great thing.
Yeah.
But beyond that, under the leadership of the late, great Dan Celia, who is probably watching from glory right now with a smile, he decided that he would compound and multiply the outreach of Financial Issues to be beyond just this core mission of stewardship, and has taken on a number of ministries, among which we've been blessed to be part. And together, we have seen tremendous results. Frankly, Valerie and I started with Dan and Yvonne in being able to broadcast the ministry of preborn across the nation, inviting people to underwrite ultrasound sessions for girls and pray for us and be part of the battle of saving lives. That started with Financial Issues. And were it not for Financial Issues, we wouldn't be what we are today, which we're nothing except servants of Jesus Christ. But here's the deal. Together, we've seen over 280,000 babies saved since that hour where Dan Celia and Yvonne, Valerie, and I met in Chicago. And the wonderful, faithful, life-affirming audience of Financial Issues is making a tremendous difference all across the country, and has allowed us to see also the power of radio and of podcasting and all of the different outreach factors in being able to multiply ministry. We had no idea. We're ministers of the gospel. We're not radio people, but Dan opened that awareness to us, and now we're on virtually every conservative talk and religious talk, and the Lord has anointed it. There's ministries like a lot of ministries have been doing this for years. We've only been doing it for just a few years, and yet our results are better than all of them put together because of the favor of the gospel. And so this all started with Financial. So if you're thinking about investing in a ministry today, tax deductibly, I just really encourage you to invest in Financial Issues Stewardship Ministry, because they're selfless, as is Christ. I would get on the radio with Dan all the time, and he would say this, and I'll quote him: "Don't give to Financial Issues, give to preborn first." Well, today, I am from preborn saying, don't give to preborn first, give to Financial Issues. These guys are trying to reach their goal of 200,000, and they need it to be able to bless America. And they're helping us save babies literally every day through inviting people to come to the battlefront and try to save these lives. This is a hour and day where Carmelo Harris, or whatever she wants to call herself at the time, and the the deep state are, making abortion centristic to their campaign because they know that women who have been abortion injured are not going to vote against that, and it puts the conservative parties in a corner. But we're making a difference hour by hour on this, and
Amen.
We're just so thankful.
Amen. Thank you, brother.
Thankful.
Dan, I got to tell you, it's so cool for me to watch, because I'll watch some of these other big time conservative shows, Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, and it's so cool to hear those guys say, you need to go and give money to preborn. And I'm thinking, hey, those are my friends that they're talking about. That's preborn. That's Dan Steiner. It's so cool, man. And just seeing your guys' success over the last couple years, we celebrate that with you. Man, that is awesome. So kind of leads to my next question, Dan. How's God been faithful to preborn, particularly this past year?
Well, we've been able to see some wonderful additions to our outreach to young women. We've brought on a number of nurses that have been able to talk women off the ledge of jumping to abort, and we're able to reach more robustly because of a whole department of nurses, girls that are searching for the abortion pill online, which now is 63% of abortions. And so that's a new area that we're developing our outreach into, and it's working wonderfully. And so now we've got an added accoutrement, an added feature to saving lives. Not only are we reaching them and they call us and we send them in the clinic, but before we send them in the clinic, we have them talk to a nurse.
Yeah.
And that is very effective. So it adds another point of contact at the moment of their decision by a medical professional, and it's helping them choose life even more clearly. So we're really thankful for that. The Lord's, we're currently also on a tour, a national tour with, ironically, Tucker Carlson. I'm calling you from Reading, Pennsylvania, not too far from you guys.
Yeah, nice.
And able to, I think, in fact, Yvonne's coming to the show tonight.
Yep,
with Tucker.
yep, I believe so. It's cool.
And so that all started with Dan encouraging preborn to, let people know you're out there by getting on radio. So it's working really good.
It's awesome, man. Yeah, praise the Lord for that, brother. Dan, one more thing I wanted to ask you about today. There was an article that came across my eyes. It's a troubling one, but hopefully can be of encouragement as we see the success of preborn. This article was titled this, Abortion is the #1 crisis facing Black America today. So the Washington Stand put out an article recently from an author who describes himself as a pro-life Black American. He actually marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. back in the 60s. And in this article, he delves into Planned Parenthood's racist origins, of course. Planned Parenthood likes to ignore that, but they were founded by a racist white woman, Margaret Sanger. This article kind of recounts back in 1965, the president of the Philadelphia NAACP chapter condemned Planned Parenthood in the northern part of the state because 70% of the population was Black. Very interesting here that the fertility rate for Black women in the 19th century was almost 8 births per woman, and by 1975 it was down to right over 2 births per woman. Dan, could you speak to this for just a moment? Because I think this is something that we tend to forget, that not only is abortion murder and evil, but it's also racist as well. What would you say to that?
Yeah, deeply racist. In fact, back in the time of a couple of years ago with the coronavirus, the Sanger Center, which is the original Planned Parenthood in, I think it's Soho, New York, they took that name off of it because of the racist implications of the foundations of Planned Parenthood's eugenic bent. And so here's the deal. Satan's after the children, and he's certainly racist in what he's wanting to do. Sanger's deal was they would call, blacks weed people, which is so ridiculous, so racist.
Yeah.
Trying to create, as was her contemporary, Hitler, both of them being Malthusian eugenicists to exterminate, certain groups of people so that they could form a super race, which is absurd. And it's exactly what we're dealing with today, that a large percentage of the Planned Parenthood clinics are located in Black neighborhoods. They abort at a much higher rate than do Anglos. And it's the organ, and now they're differentiating their portfolio of sales to be able to trans and mutilate children on top of it.
Yeah.
So this organization is, it's destructive to children of all races. But there's a clear racist bent to it.
Absolutely. And they are, as you've said before, Dan, in league with the Church of Satan, one of his chief arms. And so we take confidence in the Church of Jesus Christ being victorious. And it's just so grateful to hear the success that Preborn is having, brother. And I want to tell you from the bottom of our hearts here at the ministry how much we love you and appreciate you. And thank you for standing in the fight for us. And we're standing with you, brother, shoulder to shoulder. Thank you, Dan.
A privilege. And if you're listening, please invest in financial issues today.
Thank you so much, brother. God bless you, folks. That's Dan Steiner, president of Preborn. You got to check him out, preborn.com. That's preborn.com. We love our friends over at Preborn. We got a little bit more of the show left, folks. Shana's coming back here. She'll also have Jason joining her as well. You don't want to miss that for the rest of today's show. Thanks for joining us here at Financial Issues, and we'll see you after this break for more. Stick with us.
In a world where financial decisions can feel overwhelming, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But what if there is a way to align your financial goals with your deepest values? Financial Issues has helped us navigate the complex world of finance through a biblical lens. By prioritizing and investing in a way that honors God, Financial Issues has empowered us to focus on what truly matters: our family, our faith, and our future. With Financial Issues by our side, we can invest knowing that our financial decisions are in line with our values. Take the first step today and become a Financial Issues partner to access rich online resources, training tools, and guidance for biblically responsible investing. Head over to financialissues.org and learn how to invest your money in a way that honors God. That's financialissues.org.
How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up, like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. Yeah. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plans to learn more about Timothy Plan.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. We're so glad that you've stuck with us. Well, I've invited my friend Jason MacDowell back today to talk about some things. We've been talking about Social Security planning for several weeks now. We've been talking about the topics and claiming strategies and things like that. And I hate to belabor that issue, but we're actually starting to get questions about it. So welcome, Jason. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us again today.
Thank you.
So let's jump right in. So Gina submitted a question on the website. Gina's not a partner, but I'm assuming she must have been listening to some of our talk about Social Security, because she says, I was married to my first husband for about 12 years and had 3 children. After a divorce and 6 years later, I remarried and had 1 child, then divorced 4 years later. I'm now 60 and pondering the future. Would I be eligible for additional Social Security benefits based on one of those marriages? What do you think?
Well, first, Gina, welcome. I see that you're not a partner. I'm happy that you're asking this question, because this is a fantastic question regarding ex-spousal benefits and ex-survivor benefits possibly here. So to jump into it, Gina, the first husband that you had, you do qualify, you are eligible for ex-spousal benefits right now. But you'll have to be at Social Security claiming age probably to actually start receiving those, which is you're going to be your age 62 in this case. Your second spouse that you had after that, you won't qualify because you weren't married long enough. But now that you are age 60, this is actually an interesting, if you are to remarry again, even though you may be eligible for your first spouse's ex-spousal benefits, you'll be able to, if you get remarried again, you'll be eligible for your current spouse at that time since you're over age 60. These Social Security laws can be very nuanced there, but that is based off the information you gave me, your eligibility there. Do recommend talking to a supervisor at the SSA.gov. If you call the national hotline, talk to a supervisor, they'll be able to lay out all of your options. And it sounds like you're going to have a few options of claiming in there. So this ex-spousal benefit is pretty unique in the sense that once you get to Social Security claiming age, 62 for you, being able to take the ex-spousal benefits, if your first husband has passed, you may also be eligible for the ex-survivor benefits from your first spouse. So those would be two options there depending on the situation, which you haven't indicated here at all. So yes, please call in to the SSA.gov, that national hotline there, and ask for a supervisor and see if they can help you with your options that you have for Social Security claiming. The other additional topic I wanted to mention on that is if you have any minor children, I'm not sure here, you don't indicate that may add to possible benefits, additional benefits you might have as well. So if that is the case, I want you to still talk to a supervisor. So that's the key point, is talk to somebody who's allowed to go through your options here with your particular situation. So that's a really great question, Gina. I'm glad you asked about that.
Good stuff. So, we've been encouraging people to go on to SSA.gov and register if they've never registered there, because, we used to get those statements in the mail around our birthday every year, and it would be the little brochure, and it would show what our earnings history was, and then it would show what our benefits would projected to be at a certain age, and all of those things that we could potentially qualify for. And now, with the world of the internet and all of that, it's good to go online and register at SSA.gov, because they don't send them in the mail anymore, or at least I don't get them if they do. But so we're in private practice too, and we do some income planning for our clients. And one of the things that we encourage them to do as well is go to the SSA.gov and download their statement, as well as another file that we can kind of load into one of our programs to do some more detailed planning. But Jason, we were talking about a recent incident. Somebody was telling you something that happened whenever they went to go register for their SSA.gov account. Would you share that with the listeners?
Absolutely. This is something for brand new information. It hasn't happened since I've been following Social Security claiming with individuals since before 2020. This has happened recently this year that I think is just prudent for partners and anybody listening. If you are going on to the SSA.gov, the official online account, to create your online account, Social Security Administration has added a few additional identification login sort of mechanics in there. And we've found recently that some people are running into roadblocks where they cannot create an account. So when that happens, they tell you to call into the national hotline. There's only one number, and everyone has to call that number, or go into your local Social Security Administration's office in your local area. You can do either one. We do know the wait times have been increased dramatically to hours of waiting if you call the hotline in that case for those situations. So maybe going into your local office will speed up that process. Now, what we found out is that no one's answering any questions right now on why this is happening. So without speculating about what it could be, all we know right now is that if you go into the office or if you're calling in the number, they're going to probably send you or mail you specifically a PIN that will allow you to create the online account. Now, again, this is new information, so we want to just go ahead and warn everyone that it's okay. They're not answering questions about whether or not something's happened with your Social Security number, but it seems like an additional layer of identification proving for our identification number that should be the proof in the first place. So, so that's what's happening.
That's interesting to me, and it created more questions than answers for me as to why this is happening. Because, you know, when you're logged into SSA.gov, all you can really do is access some information. It's not like you could change your address. It's not like you could start or stop your benefits. You know, you still have to go in. And I think it's important for people to remember, too, that the Social Security Administration won't call you. So if somebody calls you or emails you, you know, you really would be better served in getting the phone number or going into an actual Social Security Administration office. Because, you know, Jason, another thing that we were talking about, say what you said about what J.D. Vance has been talking about.
Yeah, so I'm going to go in about J.D. Vance was covering about the number one fraud in America right now. I do want to make note that if Social Security, you can schedule appointments at the national hotline where they will call you for a scheduled appointment. So there is a case where they will call you, but it isn't something out of the blue. Right. So that isn't something that happens. That's normally with our government. But with J.D. Vance, he has talked about on interviews that I've watched that the number one fraud situation is stolen Social Security numbers. And with antivirus, and we have to have special protections in our licensed field with our cyber, security, and getting notifications all the time of these corporations leaking our numbers and our data out there, or hackers coming in. That Social Security admitted numbers are the number one fraud. So J.D. Vance has talked about that and how that's a problem, and the Trump administration is looking to fix those problems there. So this kind of lines up with that additional requests and requirements there.
I'm sure that's probably Project 2025, right? For disclaimer reasons, I have not read Project 2025. I have listened to some commentary on it, but anyway, that we won't go down that rabbit trail. But yeah, I think that's very interesting to know, because we do have, admittedly, somewhere between 10 million and unadmittedly, some people estimate the number, 30 million people that have come into the country. Even Jay Powell is making reference to the immigrants that have been coming into our country and in our job system. And I'm working on some interesting research about. You hear all these claims that immigrants can get registered to vote, and so I'm following a couple of rabbit trails on that, but I don't have anything on it just yet. So if you haven't set up your SSA.gov account, I would encourage you to do that. And if you have any personal experience doing that, we'd love for you to send an email to the ministry and share that with us. Well, Jason, let's spend about the last minute or so just refreshing everybody on the year-end campaign here at Financial Issues. What would you have to share with our listeners?
I've seen where the campaign's sitting now, and that's fantastic, very encouraging. I want to encourage those that maybe aren't monthly warriors to consider that. Dan talked about in the past, maybe $25. You don't think about it each day. And ever since Dan, I've been a monthly warrior myself with it. Just, you don't miss it. You don't really see it, just $20, $25. So my encouragement is maybe for those that are already monthly warriors to consider increasing that amount. I've considered that myself here and how much I want to do there, and I'm still thinking about it, but it's something that I think would help the ministry, and it's an amount I'm also going to forget and not think about as well. So I encourage those that are already monthly warriors maybe to increase that amount by a little bit, and that's very exponential and also is compounding in that sense. So I'd like to encourage people to do that.
Great. Thanks for that. We appreciate that feedback and that encouragement, because you may not miss it, folks, but somebody might miss us if we don't have the opportunity to stay on the air, to continue to expand the networks that we're on. So we just encourage you to do that. Well, folks, we are coming up to the end of our program here. We hope that you enjoyed it and you were encouraged, and we hope that you'll come back. Check us out in the meantime at financialissues.org.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.